Hi, folks. I'm John Chrastka, Executive Director for EveryLibrary and the EveryLibrary Institute. Welcome to another big conversation, personally and professionally. I'm really thrilled to be able to be the host of this one. I know we've got a lot of guest hosts this week for EveryLibrary Live, the Banned Books Weeks Festival, but this one I said, this one's mine. I wanted to be able to hang out and have this conversation with the authors of one of the family favorites here at the Chrastka household, Tango Makes Three, Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell. This festival that we're hosting today, this week, as the only National Political Action Committee, it has a real purpose to it. As you know, if you've been paying attention and following along, the work that we're doing to oppose censorship around the country is very important and very impactful. We're at 105, 106, 107 campaigns at the most local level, zip code level, school district level to oppose censorship. And the fact that we've gotten to this point in America is crazy. Our guests today are early adopters in that censorship fight, and I want to have a conversation with them about that. But also, why did they write the book? Because that's a big part of this festival this week as well. We want to have we want to change the headline and make sure that we can talk about the culture of reading, the joy of writing, the intersection that people have with getting to contact authors and literature through their libraries, and what do they bring home. And for me and my family, Tango Makes Three is exactly one of those books that we first found at the library and brought it home. I want to bring in Peter and Justin right now and do some formal introductions. Justin Richardson, MD, is co-author with Peter of the award-winning And Tango Makes Three. Dr. Richardson is an assistant professor of psychiatry at Columbia and Cornell, and the co-author of Everything You Never Wanted Your Kids to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask. His advice has been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Today Show, NPR, Morning Edition, etc. Peter Parnell is co-author with Justin of Tango Makes Three. He's a playwright whose plays have been produced at the Public Theater and Playwrights Horizon in New York City, the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles, Seattle Rep. His play QED was produced on Broadway. He's written extensively for television, both as a producer for both The West Wing and The Guardian. And he's written episodes of Maurice Sendek's series, The Little Bear. That thing's delightful. So, folks, I'm holding up the book because this is the new version of it, from what I understand, Peter and Justin. You were telling me a little bit about what distinguishes it from the book that was too tattered for me to grab off the shelf here at the house.
This is the school library edition, which was just released earlier this month by Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. And really, it's meant to underline the fact that this is a book that Simon & Schuster feels strongly belongs in schools and in school libraries and in libraries in every community. And it contains a bunch of new essays in the back, including a description of same-sex animal behavior from an animal behaviorist perspective written by the great author Elliot Schrieffer, a note from Peter and me about our experiences in libraries when we were kids, and some information about the history of book banning and the importance of understanding for all readers of this book, young and old, their First Amendment rights to read and access books in their libraries, which talks a little bit about the great fight of Stephen Pico as a high school student, who secured the rights for so many of us in the 80s.
Well, I think I want to come back around to some of your very personal experiences that you shared about libraries in particular. The framework around censorship here. Now, you guys will not remember this at all, but you met me and my son back in 2000, and I don't remember when you were in Chicago for a Banned Books Week event hosted by Judith Krug of beloved memory at Bughouse Square across from the Newberry Library. And I wanted to bring my son to this because we had a wonderful experience of the book, and I was involved at the time with the American Library Association. I'm like, I'll bring my kid, And you had a very nice at the microphone kind of thing. My kid was really in love with you for being the authors, of this. But what got us there as a family, and I want to share this with you, the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you all today is not just that, but it was because, well, when my son was born, my father-in-law he's passed away about a year ago now. My father-in-law is one of these Chicago guys who looks like Dennis Farina. He looks like Joe Mantegna. He's got the mustache. He plays 16-inch softball. He's an umpire as he got too old to play. His knees got bad. And he's a salt-of-the-earth kind of guy. He's the guy who, when you have the conversation at Thanksgiving, you hope it doesn't go into religion or politics, you know? And the best year of this guy's life, my father-in-law, Ed, was 2005 when the White Sox won the World Series and his first grandson was born. His first grandchild was born in that order, by the way. His daughter, who's my wife and a true subversive, knows her father very intimately, sat him down, put her child, when he's a toddler, on his lap, and gave him this book. Oh, look, it's about penguins. And that man had it was wicked of his daughter, my wife, the mother of that child, but it was also something that I know as part of his own personal arc. And as I said, he passed away about a year ago. He was able, with his other granddaughter, as she to shift from she to they, to hear that man say that. I'm a little choked up right now because this book, at that moment, was part of his journey in a way, and my family's journey too. I want to thank you personally for that.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear. We remember that time very. It was very important for us. It was at a time when our lives were undergoing great change and transformation. And we also want to mention and shout out, as you did, to the late, great Judith Krug, who actually we met, I think, after the very first challenge of the book, all the way back. She was really amazing. And then she was the reason that we were going out to Chicago and doing the readouts. And,
Yeah. Thank you for letting me share that. I'm not trying to spring it on you, but it's a
story. It's great. And of course, this is the whole point of writing the book, right? Is to communicate to people and to help them communicate to their children about something that, at the time that we wrote it, was sort of brand new in the world of children's literature, and is still something that, we need to push to get spoken about.
Well, I mean, the book is 20-something years old now.
Almost 20.
Almost 20. Yeah. I mean, I know you've told this story a number of times about what drew you to write the story itself, though. I mean, there's the most provocative line. I don't remember which one of you said this in another interview I was reading as prep for it, but the most provocative line was the line when the zookeeper said that he thought that the penguins were in love.
Yeah.
I mean, your background in psychiatry, Justin, Peter, as a playwright, the humanity of both of those disciplines. I mean, did you see that story in person? I don't actually know the answer to this.
So, we'll tell you about.
We first read about Roy and Silo and Tango in the New York Times. Denisha Smith had written, at that time, on Saturdays, the New York Times had an arts and ideas section, and Denisha Smith wrote an article called "The Love That Dare Not Squeak Its Name."
I love that.
Yeah, it was the story of Roy and Silo and Tango. And we were at the kitchen table on Saturday morning having breakfast, and Justin read this article and said, "Listen to this story." And he read her article aloud and did so saying, "I think there's a picture book here, or at least a story that we can elaborate on and create because of the fact that we knew there was a need for books that would be both for kids of same-sex parents, two mom, two dad families, adoptive kids, and there wasn't that, or not a lot of that at the time. So it was really Justin who came up with the idea, and it was Justin's energy and optimism that we could do it, because neither of us, although we grew up loving children's picture books, it was not something that we had ever done before. So
yeah, this is not Harry the Dirty Dog.
no,
Although
we love Harry the Dirty
Dog.
I do
Yeah.
too. I know. It's a
Yeah.
great book, you know.
Right. We grew up with Harry the Dirty Dog, and
you grew up with Ferdinand the Bull. Well, we both did.
Right.
But
I mean,
Ferdinand the Bull.
we were two, boys who were different from other boys, looking for books that spoke to us personally. And, for me, it was Ferdinand, the story of Ferdinand the Bull, because that was a bull who didn't want to fight like the other boy bulls and loved to sit under a tree and smell the flowers. And that was me. And I recognized myself in that book. And I think that memory really gave me a sense of the power of a child finding himself in a book when there isn't maybe a peer who has that child's same experience, or there isn't a parent who shares something that's unique to that child, and that books really can embrace a child and give them confidence and courage and a reflection of themselves. And so we really, we were at the time, we were trying to have a child and thinking very much about that, and of course wanted a book on our child's bookshelf that would speak to her. And that was part of the impetus for this. And then also, I had been, as a psychiatrist at Columbia, and I founded a gay and lesbian mental health center at Columbia. I had been asked by, a number of schools in New York to talk to them about sexual orientation development and what could they do for their kids. And then I began speaking at a lot of schools around the country about this. And I heard from parents, I heard different things from parents, right? I heard some parents who were like, we've had these great talks about, you might love a boy or you might love a girl when you grow up. I heard from parents who said this is totally inappropriate and how can you suggest we talk to our kids about this? But there was this middle group of parents who wanted to talk to their child about the fact that there was, a kid in their kindergarten class who had 2 moms and to explain what that meant, but felt like they didn't know how to do that. And they were afraid of saying something that would be age inappropriate, is a fear we hear a lot about.
Yes.
And how could they do that? Was there something they could read? And I think having had all those conversations is what, when I read this story in the New York Times to Peter, made the penny drop right away, which is, okay, this is a story for kids that kids can relate to, and parents can read it and know that they're talking about sexual orientation in a way that is at a child's level, and which we hope they would feel comfortable doing. So I think all of things together.
You've done something here with this book that has made it very accessible, very tangible, and also for folks like my dear dead departed father-in-law, unarguable. That there's a true story. There's a true story here that you might not have ever heard before as a reader, but it's a true story, and that has been the place that I would suggest has made this book so accessible to families that don't need it but want it. Writing it for your own family, as it was writing it for other families. I love that compassion and that empathy that you're bringing to it, and also a basis in human development, psychology, et cetera. That's all great, but it's the families who stumbled on it because it's a nice looking book about a penguin, family like that. To us, I'm not coming at this with the perspective of you helped me and my children as a same-sex couple. I mean, we're heterosexual, cisgender, heteronormative. We're boring suburbanites, okay? But you helped us as a family to understand other families, and I appreciate that deeply.
So glad.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
really good to hear.
Now, what you also did, though, was an act of, I think, moral courage and bravery. I mean, the moral courage and bravery of putting this out there. I don't know if you remember exactly what it was like to wake up the morning after the first book ban became public, the first challenge became public, but to become, I mean, you're both a bit of a media celebrity at a certain point. You know, you've done something that's more than just on the bestseller list. What was it like to have the work of love that you did, the work of compassion, the work of empathy, the work of humanity attacked like that?
Well, it's all of the things you can imagine, right? It's insulting and it's infuriating, and it's risible, and it's it's cool to see your book held up by Whoopi Goldberg on TV, and it's scary. It's been a complex experience. There are elements of it that feel gratifying because you think, well, they wouldn't be complaining if they didn't think it was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's obviously having an effect. It's getting into the cultural conversation. That's what we wanted it to shape the way people think, and it's so there's a feeling, if there's an argument about it, it's being discussed, and that's great. It's having an impact. It's moving the needle, maybe. Of course, we've seen that needle move forward and backward and forward and backward, but
the fact that we're back here again, the fact that there is that pendulum or that needle or that counter-revolutionary force. It is revolutionary to have a same-sex parenting book hit the bestseller list.
Yeah.
The creative work here that you've been doing. I mean, I don't mean to come back to the psychology, psychiatry, and the playwriting side, but I do see something here that I just would like to explore with you for a moment, because the work of putting something up on stage, the work of creating character and putting it up on stage is intended to potentially tell your own story, but it's also potentially to move an audience into engagement with the ideas. When it comes to Peter, let me ask you the question. I mean, writing a book as opposed to doing a stage production or TV, writing for TV, how? I'm not saying any of Tango Makes Three is theatrical, but how do those two disciplines relate?
Well, one way they relate is that in a play or a movie or TV show, but I started writing by writing plays. So if a character wants something very, very much, and Marcia Norman, who's a fantastic playwright, talks about it can be, wanting a candy. It can be seeing a nickel on the floor and wanting it. But if it's written in a way that says to an audience, that is sort of life or death for that character. And if there is an opposition, it's very basic, but to that character getting it, you have the beginning of a story. What is that character going to do? Also, who is that character? What's their background? What's their why? Why is this need so strong? And I think that's a very basic part of storytelling that is true for these two penguins. And on that level, it not only relates to whether it's a play or a TV show, or it also relates to the most basic kind of story in a picture book that we can remember from when we were growing up, just like talking about Ferdinand. Or don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not an instructional pamphlet, right? It's a work of children's literature. It has to function in that way. And I think the reason why we're still talking about this book is because it does function in that way as a story that children relate to. And, one of the things that we talk about is, these are two little penguins who are looking at the other families, and they've just been able to have a chick. And they're looking at each other and they're thinking, like, can we do that? We want to do that. And of course, that's every child's experience. A child relates to these two penguins who want to be able to do the thing that the other grown-ups are doing, and they can't. And so that's how children climb into the book, and they start to root for them because they know what it's like not to be able to do the things that their parents can do. And then you've got your reader, right? And
then the grown-ups are there, and they are also responding to the idea that the two penguins try to hatch a rock, because the rock resembles what they see of an egg. And when we first wrote the book, when we were first having it edited and working with Henry Cole, who was wonderfully illustrating it, when we would get to that part of the story, that's when grown-ups would start to tear up, because it's such a basic elemental desire. So you've got,
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, you said a moment ago, Justin, that the needle moving back and forth, and the fact that this book is as we've been talking about, so powerfully honest and powerfully true and undeniable. I mean, Tango Makes Three was earlier this month. There was a lawsuit that was settled in Nassau County, Florida. The book was banned again. It's been everything old's new again here. The lawsuit came after the Nassau County School Districts removed 36 books from shelves, including Tango Makes Three, claiming that they were obscene and that they had sexual content. And mercifully, the judge came around to say that the district, because the district was unable to prove that the books were obscene under Florida law, the settlement returned the books to the shelf, acknowledged that Tango Makes Three is not obscene. The admission that the district made around the broader issues that unjustified removals of books under false claims are some of the, this is a precedent-setting case. Do you mind getting into it a little bit more? I mean, I know that you were involved personally in it alongside some parents.
Yeah, sure. We were delighted with the outcome, which was settled just a couple of weeks ago on September 12th. And, the school district was able to reflect on that they had removed these 36 books without having any opportunity for public comment, which is necessary in Florida, according to Florida's Sunshine Law, that if there is a consideration that's going to be taken by a school board to remove a book, it needs to be discussed in public so that the public has an opportunity to share their perspective. And this is, I mention this as a way of saying, go to your school board meetings, and if there is a challenge to a book, you have the power of persuasion, and you should go and use it. Nobody had that opportunity this time around, and so that was part of our challenge to what had happened, in addition to challenging the basis which they used, which I think we felt was kind of a fig leaf for the reason that they actually removed the books. We found that we were able to come to terms in a way that got all 36 books back on the bookshelves. 12 of them are there in a restricted way, in that children need a permission slip to read them, but the school has agreed that they will then have these books reviewed by committee and have the committee present their perspectives in a public hearing, so the public will have the opportunity to speak. And I fully expect and certainly hope that the restrictions will then be lifted as a result of that process, and the books will be back where they belong and accessible to all. But at least for now, they're all back in the library. And we're talking about Beloved by Toni Morrison, and The Blue Sky by Toni Morrison. And I mean, these are extraordinary works of American literature that need to be in the school library. So we're really just thrilled with the outcome.
And congratulations. We follow that court case very closely. We had legitimate hopes that it would go the right way. And what you said a moment ago about the fig leaf, the charges against a book are often a proxy fight against a population. The charge that a book is obscene is easier to do than saying that different human beings are somehow or another criminal. But the charge of obscenity is a criminal charge. And in this settlement, having the school district have to back away from that charge that there's something criminal about Tango Makes Three or Beloved or the other 34 books on the list. Can you talk a little bit about like the appropriate versus inappropriate fight, the language that's used around the fig leaf?
Do you want to?
Please.
Yeah. So listen, the Pico v. Island Trees Supreme Court decision, which we all understand is what's protected our books for decades, made it clear that the First Amendment indicates that a book can't be removed simply because a school district disagrees with its content or its viewpoint, right? That's what this is all based on. And so what you see, I think first, the bans that started happening in 22 or 23, it was as if the folks who were banning these books were completely unaware of that. And we're saying openly in school board meetings, well, we disagree with the viewpoint of this book, so we're going to pull it. Since that time, and because of legal actions that have been brought and conversations like these, you're starting to see somewhat more sophisticated, but nonetheless misleading justifications for removing the book. So they won't say that they disagree with the content of their viewpoint. They'll say it's obscene, or they'll say, as Nassau did about our book, well, we're removing it for weeding because it's a lack of circulation.
Yeah, we'll just make it disappear.
Right. So, these arguments are, as transparent as they sound, right? The argument that is getting a lot of play, and Florida has been using it, is the government speech argument. And I don't know, I'm sure that's something that you've been discussing. The government speech argument is a challenging one to take seriously, but we have to take it seriously. And the idea is that all the books that are in the library represent the government speech, and the government speech is protected from the First Amendment, and the government can't be forced to say something that the government doesn't believe in. So public school libraries get to decide what gets said in the books of public school libraries. Now, this idea just strains credulity as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if the library represents government speech, then the government is a completely incoherent speaker, because the government has the Bible and the story of creation and the origin of species. And unless you're going to decide that all books that disagree with one another cannot exist together on the library shelves, then the government speech argument, I think, kind of falls apart. But that's where we are right now. We're listening to how the government speech argument is being made and what are the legal arguments against it, and very carefully listening to hear how these decisions around the country are going to go.
Yes, and the Llano, Texas situation right now, where the Attorney General of Florida is being given time to argue in Texas on behalf of that government speech doctrine. I appreciate. I mean, I know you've got your MD. You're also going for your JD right now, Justin. Like, what you two have been through, you should get an honorary JD, both of you. Seriously.
Oh.
What's your advice for parents and for educators and for library advocates with the Nassau settlement in mind?
Well, one larger, which encompasses all of this, which you know very well, John, is that it's taken us. We've been not maybe realizing, some of us haven't, the degree to which school boards and the power of decision making that goes on in school boards is primary, because even with the committees that review books and then weigh in on whether a book should be in a library or not, it can be overruled, not listened to by the school boards themselves. And the school boards all around, Texas is a great example of it. Texas also has an amazing network now of people who understand this and are working to change the composition and of the school boards, because they have been now are instrumental in blocking and defending or attacking, really, the First Amendment in terms of how we see it. And those school boards, you should be people should be going to the school board meetings. They should be running to be on the school boards, and they need to be showing up to give their voice, because that makes a difference. And there needs to be a kind of sea change, I think, in terms of that.
Well, I'm with you on that. The understanding the law, understanding the law and the Constitution, the fact that so many of those school boards in this early third, fifth, eighth wave of censorship, what are we in America? Just didn't understand the basics of it. I think that Justin, you did a PEN America interview a couple of years ago that I was again reading, some of this in advance of today's conversation, and the interlocutor over at our friends PEN America asked a couple of questions. What's your favorite book? What's your favorite that? And Justin, your response to what book are you recommending these days? You said the Constitution.
Yes, yeah, but really, listen. I think when we started, we didn't know that the First Amendment protected speech and that applied to books. And most people, I think, are not aware that the Constitution is standing behind them. And I think, when we found that out, and it may have been Judy Krug who explained it to us really for the first time in 2006, we felt so affirmed and so protected by the United States government. I had this sort of a remarkable feeling and proud, and when when our book was challenged, when the government of Singapore had decided to pulp every copy of Tango Makes Three, we were able to say, that'll never happen here,
Right.
And unfortunately, things are different. And I mean, I don't know what wave of censorship is, but it feels like a completely new wave to us, because really, Tango was the single most challenged book in America for 4 years after it was published. And every single time it got returned to the library, every single school board and superintendent found that it belonged in the library. And, the first time that didn't happen was February of 2023. And that's it. And so now we're in a different world.
Well, the final question that I've got for you, besides, of course, because this is a literary festival as well as a big conversation about censorship and libraries and such in schools, I got to ask you the question of what's your next project? What you're working on? But the last one before that is essentially, do you think we're going to be able to ride this wave all the way through? Or we're going to be able to mitigate against it? I mean, your victory in Nassau County is a component of solving this problem, this constitutional crisis that we have in America. But I'm not looking for Pollyanna here. Are we heading in a good direction, despite the fact that the last 2.5 years have been so regressive?
I absolutely think we are. And I think the majority of Americans don't think books should be banned.
No.
And I do think that ultimately, the majority will have their way I do certainly believe that, because I don't think I understand the politics behind some of these bans and some of these awful laws like the Don't Say Gay law in Florida, which is just despicable.
Mm-hmm.
They are attempts to gin up support among a narrow base, but they don't speak for the majority of American people, and I just don't think they'll survive. I don't. Do you agree?
I do. I mean, I have days where I think, oh gosh, and how darker will it get before the light? But I also feel, as the work that you're doing, John, at EveryLibrary, the work that the ALA is doing, the work that Freedom to Read Penn and Authors Against Book Bans, I'm meeting so many extraordinary people, and with them, the people who are working with them, who are out on the ground every day, librarians, teachers, and that network, as it strengthens, I think, as Justin says, the majority of folks don't want books to be banned. So I think as the network strengthens in terms of communicating, in terms of being able to say, let's affect change, let's show up, let's give voice to this, I hope over time that there will be it will be a better story for everyone.
Well, I think that's very well put. Okay, the last question about what's your next project? What's on the horizon?
That's over to you.
Oh, well, together we haven't done a project for a while. We have a daughter who's
that's a project. Yeah,
school. That's our project.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you mentioned the thing about the difference and the similarities between books and plays, and right now there's a team in London who are putting together a musical of And Tango Makes Three for children. We're really excited about that. It's a fantastic creative team.
Mm-hmm.
So, they've sent us a few of the songs, and we're thrilled about that. And Peter, obviously, he's got a bunch of plays in the works.
And one of the other things that I'm doing, aside from writing plays, the Writers Guild Initiative, which is a wonderful part of the Writers Guild, Writers Guild East, but working nationally. The Writers Guild Initiative works with groups that have not had a voice in the past. They've worked with Wounded Warriors Project, with Army, with vets. They've worked with LGBTQ plus asylum seekers. They're working with folks with long COVID. These groups are groups working with mentors from the Writers Guild to do writing workshops, not always about their own experiences necessarily, but in order to express themselves and in order to meet others who've been going through whatever experience that is. I have, along with Amanda Jones, who's fantastic, the Writers Guild Initiative has asked us to start a librarians writing workshop. And so that group will start meeting in the winter, and it will be there will probably be 30 or more librarians first involved, and then we hope to expand.
That's fantastic. We had Amanda on. She's on tour, of course, right now.
Yes,
at this point in the month, but we had her on at the end of August for a one-on-one, and it was a lovely conversation. We worked with her on the ground on the situation. I mean, we've been in the trenches with Amanda quite a bit, but I want to make an open door invitation to you here in front of all these people that if there's anything you guys want to put up on your feet, I'd love to be somehow or another able to expose it to our audience.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So we'll stay in touch. We'll let you know.
That sounds lovely, Peter. Thank you. Peter Parnell, Justin Richardson. I have given away this book to so many other families over the years, but it's a real treasure to ours. It's part of our family lore, and it's part of the work I do every day. And so thank you for this opportunity, guys. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us on.
And folks, we're still rolling for the rest of the Banned Books Week Festival. We got a day and a half ahead of us. We're doing all of this work with these conversations again in order to do the fights that are necessary, the block and tackle work that we do at those local levels. If you want to donate, please do. EveryLibrary.org/2024. We'll put it right to work in so many different ways. So Thank you again, guys. It's been good to be with you today.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks.